We're going to call the meeting for Akron City Council to order. At this time, our clerk will read the roll.
Baylor.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
Freeman. Fusco.
Aye.
Holland.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley. Neal.
Aye.
Amobian. Aye. Somerville. Aye. All members are present except for Freeman and Mosley.
At this time, for those who voluntarily wish to do so, I'm going to ask that you please stand as we are led in prayer by Minister Marissa Saunders. Immediately following our prayer, I'm going to ask if we can be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Lombardo.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, everyone, tonight. Let's bow our heads in a word of prayer. Lord God, we just thank you and we praise you for another day. We thank you for the breath in our bodies, but we know that every good and perfect gift comes from you. Tonight, Father, I lift up our leaders here in the city of Akron who have answered the call to lead our city. I pray for our councilmen, our councilwomen and their families, our council president and her family, the mayor and his family, Lord. And I'm praying that you would just cover them and watch over them, Lord God. Father, I pray that there be unity, righteousness, love, and wonderful conversation today. Please be in the midst of this meeting so that they can have clear direction of where Akron is going, to be the city that you want us to be. We thank you for this time together, and we praise your name. It's in the name of Jesus that we pray, and we thank you so much for this day. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
The United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all.
The minutes from our previously held meeting have been provided. Are there any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Can we get a second? And we have a second. Roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Holland.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye. No, excuse me, abstain. I'm sorry.
Amobian. Somerville.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes pass 10-0 with one abstention.
We have no items on the consent agenda this evening, so we'll move right into old business. Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco.
Time on the agenda.
Time will be granted. That concludes our old business. We'll now move into new legislation.
Item number 1, offered by Mayor Horrigan and President Somerville. Resolution thanking Holly Reamer for her service to the city of Akron and wishing her well in her future endeavors and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco.
Yes, it's with much regret that I have to report out that the wishes of the committee is for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Are there any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yeah, this is, we're all going to be voting on this with a heavy heart. We had a lot of conversations this afternoon in reference to our friend, colleague, Holly. This is honoring her service to the city of Akron, to Akron City Council. I've always enjoyed Holly is here with us on the screen. I've always enjoyed our conversations. I know that Holly, family is very important to her, and we've had a lot of great conversations about our families, and I've always treasured those times that we've had together. We're going to miss you. Big shoes to fill for someone, but just appreciate everything you've done for me personally and for Akron City Council and the residents of Akron. Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Councilman Fusco. Are there any other comments from the floor at this time? Councilwoman Omobian?
I'd like to echo all of those comments, and Holly, I wish you nothing but the best, and thank you so very much for always helping me out with every big and small thing, and truly going to miss you, and I really wish you well in your new journey in life. I mean, what you're embarking on is really exciting, so happy for you and your spouse-to-be and your children and all those good things. So we wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments at this time? Councilman Neal?
Yes, thank you. Holly, just like I said this afternoon, I want to say thank you, but I forgot to thank you on behalf of the residents and constituents of Ward 4, because a lot of times, you know, we get asked to bring in resolutions or proclamations, and if it's not Holly, it's Sarah, both of them, and a lot of times those come at the last minute because people don't think of them right away. I want to just thank you on behalf of all of them for eloquently putting them together so that they can celebrate their special occasion. And as everybody said, we are going to miss you. Wish you well.
Thank you, Councilman Neal. Any other comments? Councilwoman Holland?
Holly, as I said this afternoon, I so appreciate all you did to make me feel welcome and supported and to help me find my way around as I joined City Council last summer. You'll be very much missed, and I wish you every blessing and every happiness as you begin a new chapter in your life.
Thank you. Councilwoman Baylor?
Holly, as I said earlier, you've always presented a very and contributed to a positive atmosphere, and you're the best, and I wish you the best, you know, in your newlywed role once that happens, and I wish you all well.
Councilman Malik?
Thank you. I don't want to repeat everything I said this afternoon, except to say that I will try to emulate the kindness and all of the thoughtfulness that you've showed on behalf of the city. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Our council clerk?
It was hard enough just to read in this resolution, but I'm going to give a few comments. Holly, it has been wonderful working with you. When you came here to the office, became a coworker, and then became a friend, and I've been very lucky. I am very happy for you, and you will be missed.
Thank you. Any other comments at this time before we take the vote? Councilwoman Amobian?
I forgot to mention that we would like to have mayor and council as a whole, please.
Okay, wonderful. So we do have a motion on the floor for mayor and council as a whole. Can we get a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor?
Aye.
Connor?
Aye.
Fusco?
Aye.
Holland?
Aye.
Kamer?
Aye.
Lombardo?
Aye.
McKittrick?
Aye.
Malik?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Omobian?
Aye.
Somerville?
Aye.
This resolution passes 11-0. Item number 2, offered by Councilman Fusco and Councilwoman Holland. Resolution expressing sympathy for the plight of refugees fleeing the war in Ukraine, reaffirming Akron's status as a welcoming community for Ukrainian refugees and other refugees and immigrants, encouraging residents and local groups to continue to support refugee resettlement work, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you. The report of the committee is favorable, and we're asking for a suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you. Yes, this is kind of like a public statement. It will be going, though, to, I understand, the governor's office. but this is kind of reconfirming our commitment that we made in 2015 whenever we declared ourselves as a welcoming community. This is, in these chambers, we have welcomed folks from all over the world. We've welcomed business people, we've welcomed dignitaries, we've welcomed students, and truly, the world is getting smaller and smaller. And of course, this is relative to what's occurring currently with regards to the Ukraine. And it, as mentioned earlier, it won't be tomorrow, and may not even be for several months, but there could come a time, and it could be sooner than later, that the Ukrainians who are now leaving their country due to what's happening from Putin we're here, we're open, and we are a welcoming city. They'll have a safe place to land here. We've proven ourselves over the years as that safe place, and we've seen an increase in our population in terms of at least the immigrants and refugees. And this puts us in front of perhaps other cities out there just to say, we're here and we're welcoming you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Any other comments at this time? Councilwoman Holland?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm proud to co-sponsor this resolution tonight because this is part of what Akron is and who Akron is. We are a city that was built largely upon the influx of people from other places, and I'm proud to welcome more of that here. It's part of what makes Akronites resilient and strong. It's part of what makes our people and our places beautiful and textured and really dynamic and interesting. It has been a long 11 days for the people of Ukraine. In those very first many hours, hundreds of thousands of people flooded the borders. Difficult decisions were made by border guards and even people who worked at train stations. It's said that the effort was made to have women and children board those trains first. And I'm haunted by a picture that's now gone viral on the internet, which is a picture of dozens of strollers left at a train station in Poland. These strollers were left in this picture for the mothers arriving in Poland from Ukraine. Those strollers left there by Polish mothers who knew that those mothers would need something for their babies when they arrived. So what a wonderful thing that we have the heart and the capacity to hold open our arms and whenever they arrive, to welcome them here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilwoman Amobian?
I stated this afternoon, and again, I'd like to do mayor and council as a whole on this, if we can. This afternoon when we were talking, as we watch all of this unfold, no one really thought, I know I didn't believe that anybody would attack innocent people, and all because the person is drunk on power and control. And innocent people are being killed for no reason at all. And we pray for all of those families and hope that this ends very soon. And certainly support this, and thank my colleagues for bringing it forth. Thank you.
Thank you. So we do have a motion on the floor. Before we do that, Councilman Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the resolution. I don't think any of us want to see what's going on. But as I said this afternoon, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I agree with you, Mr. Fusco. We are a welcoming community. And I think we need to lend our voice to let them know some of the images that we've seen on TV are disturbing, where you have men and women, people of color, that are in line to get on, and they're being pushed off and said no. We need to lend our voice and let them know that we're open to all people coming here. I don't know all the details, but just like those strollers, those images are disturbing to a lot of us. To see people in line and they're being pulled off the bus or the train. And so, I mean, this is a traumatic thing to see. I just thank God that it's not on our shores. But I appreciate this resolution because there, but for the grace of God, it could be here. But I just want to make sure that we let them know we are open to all people and that we see what's taking place. Because if this resolution could make any difference, I want to make sure that that's part of that difference. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a motion on the floor for mayor and council as a whole. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Holland.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian. Somerville.
Aye.
This resolution passes 11-0. Item number 3, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing the Deputy Mayor of Integrated Development or his designee to enter into an agreement or agreements with IRGRC for the acquisition of land at 51 Kelly Avenue, permitting the granting of an easement over a portion of 51 Kelly Avenue at vacant lot River Street to IRG and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Consent agenda.
this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 4, offered by Fusco. Ordinance approving the sale of various city-owned properties pursuant to the city's land reutilization program in order to facilitate the productive reuse of the property and to reduce the cost to the city and the taxpayers in maintaining vacant lots, determining said property is not needed for public use and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Consent agenda.
this item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 5, offered by Kamer. Ordinance authorizing the service director or his designee to bid UCUE bids, state bids, Sourcewell bids, Omnia Public Partners public sector bids, and or other such public bids or consortiums, and enter into a contract or contracts for the purchase, lease purchase, and or refurbishment of various vehicles and equipment and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer,
Thank you, Madam President. Committee's report is consent agenda, please.
this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 6, offered by Kamer. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts to repair defective sidewalks and drive aprons throughout the city of Akron, and to address ADA accessibility issues at city parks and community centers as part of its City Sidewalks 2022 project and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer,
Consent agenda, please.
this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 7, offered by Kamer. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids for the purchase and application of asphaltic concrete, pavement removal, riser rings, microsurfacing, partial depth resurfacing, and preventative maintenance for various streets in the 2022 resurfacing program, including alternates, approving specifications therefore and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer,
Consent agenda.
this item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 8, offered by Kamer. Ordinance authorizing the service director or his designee to enter into an agreement or agreements with neighboring communities and or the County of Summit for participation and cost sharing in the 2022 resurfacing program and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer,
Consent agenda.
this item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 9, offered by McKittrick. Ordinance ratifying the Director of Public Services entrance into a contract with Spano Brothers Construction Incorporated for emergency temporary pavement repairs at 3 water main break locations in downtown Akron and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick,
Consent agenda, please.
thank you. This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 10, offered by Lombardo. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts with Tom Todd Ideas Incorporated for a partnership with the City of Akron in the Creative Akron Summer Program for 2022 and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo,
Thank you, Madam President. The committee met today and they voted for a consent agenda.
thank you so much. This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 11, offered by Mayor Horrigan and President Somerville. Resolution recognizing March as Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Omobian,
committee's report is favorable, and we ask for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
We're fortunate this evening, Madam President, to have the first female superintendent of the DD Board to be in our midst, and she will come forth and talk about what they're doing at the DD Board. Her name is Lisa Kamlowski. Did I get that right, Lisa? Okay. I told her this is a time to brag and to talk about the questions that we raised in committee this afternoon, so take your time.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Council. Thank you so much for your support of Summit DD. Nationally, the month of March is Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. Part of what Summit DD does every day is we work to build relationships with our community partners to promote equity and inclusion for children and adults with developmental disabilities. We are so grateful that we have received support from many, many local communities this year and have filled the month of March with numerous activities for individuals, families, recreational centers in the community, schools, daycares to take advantage of. Today is actually Developmental Disabilities Awareness Day, Inclusion Day. We recognize that at Summit DD by wearing orange and had our partners posting on social media most of the day. I know the city of Cuyahoga Falls is lighting up their clock tower orange tonight. The city of Talmadge cloaked their trees in orange ribbons, so we're very grateful for that kind of support. This past weekend, the Akron Zoo offered free admission on this beautiful weekend that we just had, Saturday, Sunday, and today, for anyone who was wearing orange. And if you are not aware, the Akron Zoo is recognized nationally as a leader in sensory inclusion. They're a wonderful partner. Our month will culminate at the end of March on the 29th with an appreciation breakfast that we host to honor our unsung heroes who are really the direct support professionals working for our provider partners every day, providing those services to individuals who need them to live in our community. Most importantly, we want to use this platform to raise awareness for both employers and communities that people with developmental disabilities can be equal and thriving members of our community with the right supports. And again, thank you for your support this evening. I did have an opportunity to hear some of the questions from the committee conversation earlier today. There was a question around aging caregivers and the support that Summit DD can offer for aging caregivers. That is a situation that we deal with on a regular basis. Individuals who are eligible for services from Summit DD have a wide array of options when they reach a point in their life, at whatever age that is, whether it's the age of 21 or 61, that they decide is the right time to leave their family home. We have caseworkers that will help the individual and family plan around the resources that are available and the kind of setting the individual wants to live in, the kind of support the individual needs, the kinds of activities the individual is interested in. So anyone in a situation like that can receive that kind of planning support from their Summit DD caseworker. And I hope that is helpful for you. I also want to make you aware, in the event that you don't know, we have a partnership and have had a partnership with the City of Akron Parks and Rec Department for the last couple of years. Summit DD has funded the salary for the Parks and Rec Department to hire an inclusion specialist. This is an individual that works with every camp in the Park and Recs program that Akron offers to ensure that individuals with disabilities can participate in those camps with their typical peers. My understanding is that that program has been so helpful in Akron that this year the request is to fund 2 inclusion specialists, which we are doing. So very, very proud of that partnership. And again, thank you to the City of Akron for ensuring that your programs are inclusive. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much for those comments. Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Holland.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This resolution passes 11-0.
Okay. Thank you so much. That concludes our new legislation for this evening. We'll now move to the portion of our meeting that we refer to as our public comment period. So we actually have individuals who are going to participate virtually and also in person. And if our council clerk will just let us know when everyone is in the room.
Okay, we do have a couple of people that have joined us. Could you please start your video? Yeah, I can see that most have started. We have one person that has not started their video. Drew Woods, are you able to start your video? I can send you a prompt. It's going to ask you to start video.
Then what we'll do is we'll proceed, and then maybe, we'll be able to get video up, okay? So at this time, those who are virtual, and I think we do have one person in the audience with us today, just going to ask that you be sworn in by a member of our law department.
Good evening, everyone. For those of you who wish to address this body this evening, would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
Okay. Thank you so much. So at this time, Mr. Coker, is Mr. Coker online with us?
Just add something quick. I believe legalizing cannabis is one of many steps to providing a solution against the public health issue that is racism. And that is all.
Okay. Thank you so much. Dee McCall?
Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Dee McCall, and I'm community organizer for the Freedom Bloc. And today I'm just asking for accountability from the landlords and property managers. And also if we can create a reinvestment into housing, and also just other solutions that I could bring to the table is just starting to build affordable housing on the inner belt that destroyed Black and brown communities in Akron that isn't used today. And also if we could reuse the vacant hotel that's downtown to create adequate housing for those who are struggling with inadequate housing. And also, if we can create better protections for our citizens and for the cities by creating stricter rules for out-of-the-state landlords and property managers, similar to how colleges have out-of-state tuition, I feel as though we should create an out-of-state tax so it could be a protection for our city and for our residents. We have an issue of out-of-state property managers and landlords that are not really taking care of their property, that is creating a disconnect between adequate housing and also just within the community. So we're just seeking better accountability and then stricter rules to hold landlords and property managers accountable to treat our citizens better. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nicholas Cassiopo.
Hi, my name is Nick Cassiopo, 41 Marshall Avenue, Ward 1. I'm hoping I won't be interrupted this week. First off, I have yet to receive a response as to why Margot felt the need to limit my First Amendment speech rights last week. I was told twice now that I should expect a statement on the matter, but so far I have heard nothing of any substance outside of baseless claims that I was, quote, attacking people. I'm terribly sorry that some council members feel that me pointing out matters of fact about their records is an attack. Picking up from where I left off last time, though, Jeff and Dan received tens of thousands of dollars in campaign contributions from a longtime friend who was slated to get a lucrative fracking bill from the city last January. I can't think of a clearer example of pay-to-play corruption, but yet somehow this council and the city leadership just glossed over the matter entirely. APD Officer Phil Sr. and Prosecutor Gert Wilms were allowed to abuse their positions of power to trample on the First Amendment rights of activists in the city, yet y'all sat on your hands and did nothing. Why was there no investigation then? You all and Dan hired Chief Milet, even though he was sued for racial discrimination at his last department for firing a black police officer who complained of racism in the force. Milet also sued the city of Corpus Christi because he felt discriminated against for being a white man. Instead of being transparent about these facts, city leadership has continued to remain silent and brush it under the rug. Officer Brian Simcock is under 2 investigations for taking and sharing inappropriate photos, one of which involves photos of the body of a young black woman who died in a car crash after a police chase. Why have you all refused to address this? Even now, y'all are faced with a housing crisis decades in the making, and none of you, especially city leadership, are at all willing to do something about it. Every week it's like Groundhog Day calling in. Despite however many meetings y'all have had, still nothing has really been done. One would think Dan, Margot, Jeff, and Mike would investigate this crisis, but again, that hasn't been the case. We need updates from Donnie and Tara. What have you been doing to address the housing crisis at these and other properties? Same goes for Margot and Shamus. What have y'all been doing to address issues at Stony Point and White Pond? And the same goes for Linda as well. You know, CSS contracts with Stony Point and the Madeline, and we now know that conditions are really awful. We need updates on these. This housing problem is not just going to disappear. I would also like to ask why the city gave Redwood Housing the largest tax abatement yet, amounting to roughly $33 million. Why are Akron taxpayers subsidizing an out-of-state slumlord that is making the conditions worse at the Wilbith and Erickson complexes? Redwood will save nearly $20 million in taxes over the next 15 years, yet rents at their properties continue to rise and unjust evictions continue to take place. So the tenants at these complexes will have to suffer and foot the bill for Redwood's tax subsidy, while some white out-of-state slumlords benefit. This sounds a lot like some racist segregationist economic policy, if you ask me, and you all are directly responsible for it.
Excuse me, you've reached your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cassiopo.
Just by restricting where
your time is up, Mr. Cassiopo.
And developers from using it and providing loans to poor people for home renovations. It being
Thank you so much. Drew Woods? Is Mrs. Boyd online with us? All right.
I believe Mrs. Boyd is here in
Oh,
chambers.
Mrs. Boyd's here in person with us. Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
I just want to say I'm a strong supporter of Russ Neal and that he's a man of God and that whatever allegations came against him, they're not true because he's always a respectable man. Whoever he comes in contact with, he's always present everybody equally.
Mrs. Boyd, thank you so much for sharing. Reverend Beatty?
Madam President and members of the council, I am John Beatty, J-O-H-N-E-A-T-Y, 2047 Wyndham Road. Am I on?
I can't hear you that good.
Can we start over? Yeah. Madam President and members of the council, I'm John Beatty, J-O-H-N-B-E-A-T-Y, at 2047 Wyndham Road, Ward 8. I come to you tonight thankful for the privilege of meeting in person for the first time in many months. I come to you with 2 questions. The first question is, what is the purpose of City Council? Councilman Neal, in a conversation, gave me 2 answers, which I like. 1, represent the citizens of Akron. 2, hold the city administration to account for the sake of the citizens we represent. In other words, to hold the city administration to its claim to be transparent. I value all of your response to that question. The second question is, what is equity? An answer came to me from the magazine The Nation in an article entitled "The Philosopher Politician." The principle that our society abandons no one and provides everyone with a stable footing for flourishing. Under this principle, who is abandoned in our city, and who has not provided a stable footing for flourishing? Whom has our city abandoned and does not provide a stable footing for flourishing? I submit to you the answer is the homeless. We've already heard about Akron citizens having to live in deplorable apartment buildings maintained by people outside of the state. But there's nothing worse than to be so poor that you lose your house. We see this in the Ukraine crisis. People living ordinary lives, and like that, they're forced to flee for their lives. I personally know homeless people who are forced to face danger, hardship, with no place to call home. Many cities, and I can name you a number if I have time,
I'm sorry, Mr.
Some other time.
Mr. Beatty, I'm sorry. Next
Thank
time,
you.
save it for next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hargrove, did you fill out a form? Come on, come forward.
Good evening, Council. I'm here in reference to the Elevate Akron study, which all of you know have said that the black community in Akron, Ohio has been excluded. Mr. Hardy at one time made a statement that is imperative that this body do something. It's been over 3 years. In the black community, nothing. Okay, and then we had the study about the inner belt, which I know a lot about because I lived there. I didn't know what it was all about when I was 13. But as I got to be 21 and 22, I learned that there was exclusion. And it even stated in that report that the black community has been redlined. And that's on the report that just came out about the inner belt. But never once have I heard this body declare emergency to do something for the black community. Never. And why not? All these reports said that the black community has been excluded, each and every one, but the city does nothing. We talk about it, but we do nothing. And I want to know why. I've been asking to have a meeting with the mayor. I'm a concerned citizen in my community. And I come down here, it's been years ago, I won't call no names because that's not allowed, and I was asking about my community. And the one gentleman that works here for the city, probably still here, I don't know, he told me, why are you coming down here asking when your leaders are not? Now this is what I was told by a member of this council. And I want to know, will you do something? You have $145 million. It said the black community is supposed to be up on the top ladder in order to be some of this money. How much will you allocate for the black community after 40 years of redlining? How are you going to justify it? Or would you even think about it, put it on the radar that we need assistance? I feel like we're like Ukraine over there. Our voices is not heard. This council has not heard our voice because you haven't done anything. If you've done anything, point, as they say, point to your works. Ride in our community and show me what you have done. And it'll be a bad report card. So all I'm just asking, as I always do, allocate funding for us. There's no question in anyone's mind that the black community has not been redlined. So I'm going to let it go with that. Thank you, Council.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Oh, yeah,
Hargrove.
by the way, my address is 1008 Laurel Avenue, and I live in Ward 3.
Thank you, Mr. Hargrove. That concludes our public comments for this evening. We're now going to move into our committee assignments. Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco.
1.
Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian. Public Utilities and Green Committee, Councilman McKittrick.
245.
Parks and Rec, Councilman Lombardo.
145.
Rules, Councilman Fusco.
230.
Budget and Finance, Councilwoman Amobian. Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Councilman Fusco.
Subject to call.
Public Safety, Councilman Kamer.
2:15.
And Public Service, Councilman Kamer.
2 p.m.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else coming before council at this time? Councilman Neal?
Thanks, Madam Chair. You know, council has an opportunity to address Mr. Hargrove's concerns because we're going to be going into the budget hearings. And we know that we have the extra ARPA dollars. And one of my concerns is I know all the council turned in what their plans were, but we have yet to have a conversation on what our plans were that we turned in individually and to see where there was opportunity to collaborate. Giving money to these organizations is good, but this money came for our wards. And if we're talking about creating sustainable infrastructure, we have to make sure that we do an investment in our wards. So I'm looking forward to when we go into our budget hearings, that we look at how we can allocate dollars from our regular budget as well as from the ARPA dollars to our wards. The other thing is, interesting article in the two articles in the paper today. One was the Race, Justice, and Social Equity Task Force report. If you had a chance to read that report, there was something that was glaringly missing in that report. It talked about education, it talked about health and wellness, it talked about commerce, talked about policing, but it didn't talk about government. It did not talk about policy. And all the inequities that we see in our city started in chambers like this and our school board. And I say that because right below that article was an article about North High School, an organic community that is bursting at the seams. But you know what? They got passed over with the brand new school because that's an impoverished community and it doesn't have a strong voting base. But that community did not get a school. You've heard me say many times about you could come to my community and see less than $40 million invested and drive right over to Firestone and see $100 million invested. You could go to East and see less than $40 million invested and drive right over to Ellet and see more than $100 million invested. And this city has yet to have that conversation. Why, when we do we pull all these people together, why do we not talk about one of the main pillars of institutional racism, which is government, policy? This body, to address what Mr. Hargrove said, and to correct what's happening at North High School, we have to address what others didn't address before us. And that is the politics in this city that creates the inequities in our community. So I'm looking forward because we start with the budget. But then I'm hoping that we will review that document and do the real work that's necessary for us to create and understand the role that we play to create equitable policy for everyone in our community. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Councilman Neal. Councilman Kamer?
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, it's good to come back downtown and stand on council floor. I like it. Obviously, throughout this process, I gave my colleagues updates on Wilbeth Arlington. So I want to continue that, giving my colleagues an update. 2 weeks ago, Councilman Fusco, myself, and Councilwoman Mosley took a tour of Wilbeth Arlington, and obviously I could not go across the street to Erickson, but those two did. I've been in touch on a weekly basis with KMG and Redwood Housing, and I think the conversation and the dialogue is really good. And I appreciate that relationship. And also, just to let you folks know that when we took the tour of some of the apartments up there, we took a tour of the rehabbed ones and then one that was about to get rehabbed. So we wanted to kind of look at what it looked like before, and then hopefully we can look at what it looks like afterwards. Some other issues I'm working on, and I just talked to our Deputy Service Director this morning. We've been in contact a couple weeks now. There was some concerns about a little bit of flooding up there with some street corners and one street that floods pretty good, basically the whole block. So our Deputy Service Director has been in contact with Redwood and KMG representatives, and they're discussing those issues and moving forward. Also, I do see we are getting a few streets paved in through that area on the 2022 resurfacing. I understand this is not just about housing, but it's about an overall the neighborhood up there. Also, I work with a wonderful lady. She has spoke at our public comment period a couple times through this process, and I think we have a good working relationship. I just dropped off 8 of our speed signs last week to her so she can place them throughout the neighborhood, and we talk not on a weekly basis, but whenever the time is needed. So I just wanted to update you folks on Wilbeth Arlington and discussions that I'm having with those representatives and also some of our city administration. So, and if you have any questions or comments, let me know. I know, we're continuing to move forward, and I appreciate my colleague, Councilman Fusco, with the conversations he's having too, and also the tours and what you're putting together too up there. So I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Kamer. Anything else coming before council at this time?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. If there are no objections, this meeting is adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council, presiding.